Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don, and joining me, as always, is my leader compadre, Kevin Maxwell.
Captain Henniger, how are you?
Kevin, I'm terrific.
Good.
I'm always terrific when we get the chance to get together and bring really cool guests onto our show.
I've been looking forward to this for a while.
So, Kevin, when you think of a leader who has had tremendous positive impact on the city of Scottsdale and our community overall, what are some of the names that immediately come to mind?
Oh, just a bunch of them. Herb Drinkwater, of course.
Okay, everybody says Herb.
Right. Herb says you got to drink that, right?
Yep.
Gary Shapiro's another one. And how about Sam Campana?
How about Sam Campana? I think Sam Campana comes to my mind, too.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I haven't heard from him in so long. What's he doing now?
Hang on. He's going to talk to you. So Sam, as you can hear, is our guest today. And you know what? It's what a privilege it is to have Sam in the studio. She's been a leadership trailblazer for a long time in Scottsdale. She served on the Scottsdale City Council for 12 years. She was mayor from 1996 to 2000, the first female mayor in the city of Scottsdale. You know, her commitment and leadership in Scottsdale goes beyond her service at City Hall. She previously served on the founding board of Scottsdale, the Scottsdale Center for the Arts. I don't know if you knew that, Kevin. And she became the first woman president of that organization. And as a volunteer, she helped found the Scottsdale Foundation for the Handicapped, the Scottsdale Western Arts Associates, Scottsdale Leadership, and she's a graduate from the Valley Leadership Class 5, and she was selected as Woman of the Year in 2010. You know, throughout her years of service to Arizona, Sam has been appointed by 4 mayors, 4 governors, 2 presidents to serve in various capacities for arts and environmental commissions, boards and tasks. And you know what, Kevin? We could go on and on.
Don, we have a 30-minute show, so Sam's resume will take about 20 minutes of that.
So we're going to stop there. And Sam, I'm going to just ask you one question to lead us off here. Of all of the things, of all the amazing achievements you've made to our community, which one or two are you the most proud of?
Yeah, that's so easy. It's Scottsdale leadership.
Is it really?
Because it's going to go on and on. There is no end.
Good point.
You know, we a good group of people who all had matriculated through Valley leadership, not Art Decabooter and not Don Ruff. They were there by positions of, head of the Scottsdale Community College and the head of Scottsdale Chamber. Mm-hmm. But the 8 of us that got together the first time had all matriculated through Valley leadership. And we thought, wow, I know more about the Valley now than I know about my city, Scottsdale. How can we fix that? So it wasn't warmly embraced by everyone, let me just say. There were people who thought we have enough leaders, literally, that's a direct quote. And there were people who said, well, the JCs, the Charles, but in those days, that was for men.
No fooling, right? It was the good old boys club, right? Yeah.
I did not say that.
I did. No. I did. I'll say it again and again if I have to. That's exactly right.
It's a very old story. I was laughing when you were making that introduction, and thank you very much, Don. But it was like Scottsdale today and tomorrow and yesterday.
We have some yesterday in there. Well, sometimes you got to look at yesterday to get a sense on what today and tomorrow is all about, right?
Well, thank you.
Interesting story to hear about those early days of Scottsdale leadership, though. Kevin and I are alumni as well, and when you think of that, I'm not surprised to hear you say that, because that's going to be a long-lasting legacy that you can leave in terms of where the city is.
I know what the genius behind that was, though.
What's that?
There were several leadership programs in the Valley. I think Glendale and Tempe both had similar to Valley leadership. But we were the first that had a committed staff person that every day got up and thought, how can I do better? How can I make this better? How can we better engage with the community? How can we lift this program? And that was Martha Green for almost a decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Through the chamber. She was headquartered at the chambers.
Yeah.
We had the full support of the city.
Right.
And then the community college.
Yep.
And that sort of triumvirate, and, I was there. I called the first meeting. I was a campaign pledge of mine. But then my genius was in stepping away. Because, as a newly elected city councilman, I had a lot of baggage. Yeah. And, it couldn't be Sam's program. And it wasn't. But, people might say, well, it's just something, la, la, la.
Yeah.
And so I really didn't fully come back and engage with them for a long time. Well, and then Melinda Gulick, and now Leanne and Dana. And I mean, really, it is on such solid footing now that... that will be our greatest legacy, is to be able to imbue people with this history and sense of Scottsdale that you can get nowhere else. You can learn about the fire station, you can learn about healthcare, you can learn about the arts, school district, but nowhere can you go and get leaders in each of those groups to come and share the inside story with you. It's just fabulous.
So impactful.
Yeah, very good. It's very
It really
neat.
is, yeah. I was class 32, which wasn't that long, 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been around the block a while. I'm not a young pup anymore. I was amazed at how much I learned.
How much you didn't know.
How much I didn't know.
I go to probably 2 classes a year now, and I kind of vary them around, and I'm always just like, oh my God, or I didn't know that person. Never even heard of that person.
Yeah.
Listen to what they've done,
Yeah. So let's talk just a little bit more about yesterday before we get today and tomorrow. Talk a little bit about, your life before you got into the career in politics and started doing all the things that we've known that you've done. Talk about the early days and what led you on the journey and the path to become a true public servant.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, I'm a small town kind of farm girl from rural Idaho, but came here, to seek my fortune in the big city, and had a wonderful marriage and have 3 great kids. But as happens, especially in those days, that didn't work out. We're still great friends, Richard and I. And like I said, 3 great kids. But so I went to work. Yeah. And I had helped found this arts lobbying organization, Arizona Citizens for the Arts. It had had 2 rough starts with executive directors that didn't work out. And they came to me and asked if I would be executive secretary. Said, no, the title was executive director, and that's the only title I'll take. Didn't know a thing about how to do any of this, but I knew, I was enough of a feminist, to know that I needed that title. And so they said, fine. I wasn't making 5 figures. I'll let you, when your guests do that math. And it wasn't really a full-time job, to do this, but it was statewide. And it was really representing all the major arts institutions and artists, and engaging with cities to get % for art ordinances passed. And we got about 40 of those cities. And working primarily with the legislature and the National Endowment for the Arts.
Wow.
But the big thing was to get the state to appropriate at least as much money as the National Endowment for the Arts did, so we wouldn't leave any money on the table. And we were valued for the work that we did. And Shelley Cohn and I from the Arts Commission, we were just pals like this, put on the Governor's Arts Awards dinner every year. And that was really kind of the budget for the year, was the money made off the Governor's Arts Award. And so I spent, I really spent over a decade doing that. But about 2 or 3 years in, I decided that they built this high rise down here on Highland and Scottsdale Road. We tried high rises in Scottsdale before and thought we'd kind of decided we didn't like them. And we surely didn't like them when that decision was made in the middle of the night on a holiday weekend, So I had volunteered on lots of political campaigns. Richard Campana was a council person. And so I thought, I kind of know how to do this, And so I thought I'll float a trial balloon here. And several people said, yeah, we'd support you. And then Myron Dybel, my banker, who I asked, and Bill Soderquist, my insurance agent, who I asked if they would support me, they said, we'd like to run with you. We think that there's enough interest, in some new ideas. Yeah. And so how about if we team up? There was a time in Scottsdale that everybody ran as a slate. And so we teamed up, and we actually won in the primary, but not enough votes. And then we won, all 3 of us.
Very good. General. Yeah.
Time for a change, something very clever.
Yeah, but the 12 years on the council, so reelected 3 times.
I was.
Yeah.
I had campaigned on Let's Establish Scottsdale Leadership, but 2, that there should be term limits, because really one of the reasons I ran is that people got elected and then they owned that seat, and really no one had ever been unseated from having been elected. Scottsdale is a very young city, so maybe we'd had 25 years of history by then, but if you got elected, then you owned that seat. And so we sort of thought, there should be term limits. And so our campaign was to limit to 2 terms. And then when we had a majority on the council, we made policy that it would be 3 terms, but I'd campaigned on 2. And so after 2 terms, as much as I enjoyed it, I stepped down with no thoughts of, I did my public service and, I was just fine with that. But then Mayor Drinkwater, of his own accord, chose not to run. He was sick, but I don't even think he knew it. I truly don't even think he knew it. But it happened very quickly after that, very quickly, way too fast for all of us to even still be able to internalize.
Yeah.
But he chose, and, politics had just gotten mean and ugly, and, Scottsdale had done so many things but pretty fast, you know, and the community had kind of had it up to here with all these annexations and height and traffic and nothing we've ever heard about currently, right?
Yeah, of course, right.
Yeah.
So that's my long answer to your short question, Don.
That's a great answer. And look at the atmosphere in politics today.
Yeah.
You talk about mean. I mean, we've taken mean to a new level now, haven't we?
We've had a lot of guests talk about, give us stories about Mr. Drinkwater. Do you think that given today's climate, would he be as revealed? As revered. Yes, thank you. Revered today, if he had to, govern in this type environment, you think?
Well, no one could be.
Right.
You know, the funny story, we don't ever say joke, but, the funny story was I think he got elected with like 96% of the vote or something. And he spent the next 4 years looking for those 4%, to bring them across the finish line.
He probably met with every one of them, too, didn't he?
and maybe had them over for dinner, or at least bought them a drink when he ran into them, Pischkes, that's for sure. That's for darn sure.
Oh, Pischkes, there you go.
Yeah.
So, I think that if Herb had stayed, whether he could get elected, with just that demeanor, I don't know. But if he'd have stayed, he would have forever been beloved, really. He was can you think of one other person ever in your life, that even begins to equate with the charisma, and the charm and the effectiveness, and the effectiveness he had.
Yeah. Oh, he's in the Hall of Fame all the way, and when you think of the leader in Scottsdale who really paved the way, it's Herb, and there's people like Sam right behind him, but it certainly comes to be with Herb's the man.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you look, and you pay close attention to what's happening in our city today, when you look at the politics, and not to name names, but what are your observations? Where are we going? And politics from a national level all the way down to the very local level, it's just become so contentious out there now. What are we going to do about that?
Well, this kind of effort helps a lot. I'll bet you both had classmates that when you met them and started to get to know them, you could say, absent them going through this program, they might be out there, writing letters and opposing the school bond, or opposing, the new tax referendum or, the continuance of the tax on the preserve, because they have those leadership qualities, but didn't have enough information to have informed opinions. So honestly, I think that things like this go a long way. I really do, point. But the sad part is I think that, people who do this for a living, politics, they got it at the national level where they had a lot of resources. They figured out where to have the impact is at the local level. And so now they're not only just in school boards, but, just even in PTAs. I mean, how much more intimate can you get, than conversations that go on at PTAs? So it's, to me, and maybe not all your listeners, but it's a big problem. And if I knew how to put that all back together again, which you can't, which we cannot. So we have to envision a new future.
I think of developing relationships. The more you develop relationships and can talk to people as human beings, the more I look at Kevin, and Kevin is, when I think of a person who develops relationships, Kevin is Mr. Relationship King.
Master.
And he knows issues, and he relates to people, and everybody likes him. And we need more people like Kevin out there, and you too.
We do.
And that's the way it all comes together,
And you don't always get elected the first time. They didn't accept me into Valley leadership the first time I applied.
Really?
So Kevin, I'll watch for your name on the next.
Wow.
Well, we're going to continue to be fans of Kevin, look for ways to get him.
You guys are too nice.
Raise his leadership visibility here for sure.
Don, what you said though, I just want to interject. When I was first on the city council, we had no relationship, unless you want to just say in the negatives, with Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. Yeah. Really, we had a bad relationship.
I remember hearing about that.
But Ivan Makel, interestingly, played trumpet.
Really?
Yep. And he would get up every morning to go to school. He'll tell you this. You should have him on to go to school. And he would look across Pima Road at, would that be like Tavan, maybe?
Yeah.
Navajo. Navajo, maybe.
Yes.
That he could see the school he could walk across Pima and walk a block and a half and go to.
Yeah.
And instead he would get on a Mesa school bus and ride a school bus for 45 minutes to go to Mesa. They still do. The kids there still do not go to Scottsdale school districts. And you just have to ask yourself why, why was that? But Ivan and I came to know each other through the arts, you know, and we said, we can do this better. We can do this differently. And so really the arts opened that door to us having a lot of the relationship that we have today.
And that's relationship building. Look today we've got a good, the two entities have a good relationship today.
We really do. Yeah, it's true.
That's amazing.
Really wonderful to have. Really kind of a partnership almost.
Yeah.
You know.
But we should talk about the arts a little bit, because the arts have, you know, Scottsdale's known as an arts community, and there's been a lot of hard work to make that happen. And you've done a lot yourself to pull that together. Talk a little bit about your involvement with the arts.
How to have the biggest impact is not to be a decision maker. We know lots of people who can make good decisions and fast decisions and sometimes uninformed decisions. But the way to have the lasting impact is to make public policy. That's so. You know, you can go to a city council forever and say, "Oh, look at this wonderful artist, and we have this beautiful piece of sculpture, you know, and we'd like to put it right downtown in Winkleman," you know, and really that will go on for months deciding, is that that's not a local artist. Oh, it's too much money. Oh, I don't like Western art. Oh, it's too contemporary. You know, you can go on and on. So we never did that. We went to all those communities and said, this lifts everybody, you know, this is economic development. This puts a different face on your community. You know, wouldn't you like to have that? Look, there's matching money down here. Let's make a policy that for every public works that you have in your community, building a new fire station, a police station, you're paving a road, you're redoing the sewer, whatever it is, 1% of that will be set aside. And you can appoint a commission, we recommended, of 7 people who will then be the decision makers. You know, people who like Western art and contemporary art, and maybe even somebody who doesn't even like art, you know, just, you know, let's bring them all on. And they make the decision and you do not, because it's probably going to be controversial someday. And you will be real happy to be able to say, our citizen-driven commission made this decision. And, you know, that's how one leads to have lasting impact, is not to have it be my decision and Sam pontificating one thing or another. It's to find the buttons that push public policy and direct your efforts there.
Kevin, there's some leadership lessons there, aren't there?
Well, the one I was just thinking of, like, look how you're bringing other people into the table, right? It's about bringing other people into the conversation. And Sam's exactly right. That's what gets it done.
Grassroots level, get people to embrace it. I mean, it's just leadership 101 that so often we forget, you know?
Did you hear what she talked about there too? Perspective, right? And what your people may have differing opinions, but it's important to have everybody represented at the table. That's leadership.
When we were trying to make a difference down at the legislature and get this money appropriated, you know, so we wouldn't leave national funds on the table, we would go meet with newly elected officials and ask them to sit on a panel that talked about the value of percent for art. Oh, you know, I really don't know about that. That's okay. You know, we'll spend some time together, you know, and we'll get you all up to speed. And really, they loved that, you know, and so what's not to love about the arts, really, you know, but they took to that, you know, and then opened themselves up for a conversation or for learning something. Could you do that today? That's a 20-year-old story, you know, I don't know. But the other end of that we worked were people who had been there for a long time, and then term limits were passed even at the legislature. And so really people like Mark Killian and Rusty Bowers and, you know, some of the old conservative in those days, they'd be left-wing Democrats today, but, you know, conservative Republicans in those days. We'd go down and say, you've been here for 15 years cutting taxes, you know, and, you know, making sure that, you know, we understand all the financial implications of everything. What's your legacy? What's your legacy going to be? Let's talk legacy. And really almost to the person, they would engage in that conversation. And that's why we were so successful.
Cutting taxes is not a good legacy. It may be good. It may be a good policy.
Or temporarily, maybe.
It's temporary, but it's not a lasting legacy.
No, that's how you get elected.
What do you build? What do you leave for the community?
That's right.
In better shape. And it's not what kind of budget do you've left. That's important, obviously. And year to year, you got to deal with that. But what is your lasting legacy? If what you point to is I was a tax cutter, then you haven't done a whole lot more, have you?
No, and there are some people that will be attracted to that.
Yeah.
But nothing that 3 of us are going to bring to the table are going to have them support what we're doing anyhow. And so you have to talk to people that are, you know, willing to listen. And there's still, I think, 2/3 of the country, you know, are still ready to listen.
Yeah.
I think so. You know, and it's just funny how the national politics, you know, it's mirrored right on down to the local level, and whether it's the city council or the school board. And Kevin, You've been going to school board meetings, so you're seeing that action live and in living color, unfortunately, sometimes. Because not everybody's getting along, but whatever. That's the world we live in today.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I've been trying to focus more on the school issues lately, just in the last year, just because I thought there was an opportunity to make some difference there because our kids deserve it. And there's some really cool programs going on, and we can always introduce more. But boy, that's just really contentious right now.
And it's too bad because, the reason for this podcast, we are so proud of Scottsdale. We think there's nothing but good news here. And it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got a great school district. We've got a great city, low taxes, high services, wonderful people. And yet we spend so much time trying to deal with all the negativity that's out there. It's overrated.
Excellent.
This is why we're here, right, Kevin? That's right. It's been our mission since day one, man.
Every day.
No question. Sam, you've also done a lot of work with the National Audubon Society. So talk a little bit about that. You've made a lasting impact with some things there too. And you have not breaking news for us, but tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Well, they came looking for me, which was kind of interesting, but
because they're smart.
Yeah, because exactly.
I had lots of friends around the state, who knew that I'd chosen not to run for mayor again and had a fellowship year, but was going to have, 3/4 of my time still available. And National Audubon recognized what we had done saving the preserve.
Oh, yeah.
Really, a third of our city preserved, and a big city at that, big city at that, And so they had, around the country, they were hiring state directors to represent National Audubon, to be state directors of National Audubon. I was a vice president of National Audubon. And they'd been hiring, who else would Audubon hire, but scientists who knew all about birds, right? But they weren't having the very best fortune with that because what do you need to run a state office?
Right.
Yeah, a little bit of dough.
Yep, money, So they thought, here's someone who's had a, pretty significant impact working with a lot of good people, but, saving all this land and understanding the value of that. And she's a fundraiser.
Yeah. Now, your love of the Audubon Society, did that come from your time going up in Idaho?
Yes, it did.
Did it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So after I went through all these interviews here and all the interviews in Tucson, and then national people came out to interview me, it's a big thing for National Audubon. It was exciting and nice. And in the end, they asked the question, they said, is there anything we should know about you, Sam, that we wouldn't want to read on the front page of the paper? So I said, you obviously don't live here because
you've been on the front page a few times.
My life has been on the front page of the paper here the last many years, But I said, there is something I must confess, and I wouldn't want you to hire me unless you knew this in advance, and that is that I grew up a hunter. We grew up hunting and fishing in rural Idaho. We were on the Snake River and all these creeks, and any trout that you ever have in any restaurant in America practically came from right next to my hometown. But we went pheasant hunting, during pheasant season, and I'd had deer and elk and, venison. If we didn't fish and hunt, it would change, what our dining table looked like. We grew up of modest means. And they told me something that then was very beneficial to me, that more than half the people who are members of National Audubon, are hunters.
Is that right?
Because responsible good hunters know that you have to have people like us protecting habitat and getting more habitat and really understanding migration and all of that, or their favorite pastime will go away. Right. So that was news to me, which I've always found very interesting, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, sure
that
it is.
People understand.
You're worried about that and turned out to be a plus.
I know. Yeah.
So then you have a center down on the river that you can be very proud of as well.
We did. They said their new kind of mission with John Flicker, just this wonderful, charismatic leader, Flicker, he'd say, well, that's my name, but I'd have changed it to Flicker to get this job. He was very cute about that, But his idea was that in every legislative district, 400 and some in the country, that there would be an Audubon Center. And that it would be a gathering place and a policy place and a place for kids especially, to learn about the outdoors because kids don't know the outdoors, anymore at all. And so Randy Schilling, clever girl I am, had hired him to be our development director for Audubon from the Center for the Arts. And we said, we know right where we can build that. We got this great preserve out there. We know where there's funding and, we'll just take this right. And they went, no. It has to be where there's at-risk kids. Those kids who live in Scottsdale, they have ways to find their way, into nature. But these kids that live in South Phoenix and environs down there, they really need that. So we looked and looked and actually became very close to building it at the Papago Center with the support of the zoo and
the garden.
And the garden.
Yeah.
But Audubon said, there isn't good bus service. There's no schools close by. Look one more time. Look one more time, Sam. And it just happened to be that I was having lunch with one of the city councilmen down there and kind of shared with him what I was doing. And he went, get in my car and we're going to drive down there, and this is where you're going to do it, because we were thinking about putting just a visitor center down there. And so great partnership. They gave us the land. Randy raised $8 million, and that beautiful little center, that little gem is down there.
And it's down there in the Salt River on Central Avenue, right?
On the south side. Yep. It is.
Beautiful facility, too.
Thank you.
It really is.
It was the first LEED Platinum building.
Really? In Phoenix? Really?
Phil Weddle, whose office is just down the street here.
Yeah.
He did that for us.
No kidding.
Yeah.
If you haven't been there, you should go.
I have not been.
You should go. It's worth it.
I need. It's on my. I'm going to put it on my list right now.
Yeah. It's a wonderful facility.
Thank you.
And you had a little news because you have a little development that's going on top of that you just mentioned before we got on the air with Pete Buttigieg, and you're building a skywalk down there. That's really cool.
That's right. It's the city of Phoenix. I don't want you to think that that's
okay.
Audubon,
Yeah,
but
right.
they did the celebration because we're better to do that than literally a block away and in that beautiful little building. Yeah. But $25 million project, to tie that all up down there, because they know that now the South Phoenix, in those beautiful South Mountains there, that's going to be the next hot place to live. Beautiful views of downtown, beautiful views of Camelback, and nowhere near the kind of traffic issues that they have everywhere else.
So we've talked about yesterday, we've talked about today. Let's talk for a second about tomorrow. Sam, what gives you reason to be optimistic about Scottsdale? What do you see down the road? Your vision. You're plugged into everybody. Everybody. What gives you reason for optimism?
Well, I get up every day optimistic. I think that you probably know that about me. And really, I see 7 people on the council right now who all are there trying to do the right thing for Scottsdale. Their vision, their priorities, but I think that every one of them is a listener. I don't think there's anybody there pontificating. Now, we've had that. I've served with someone like that, and that's a real problem. That is a problem. But all these people, some, maybe it took a little time or matured, or I'm not that close to it, but I can see that I could call any one of them or text them or something, and I'm going to just say that I would get 7 responses that they would get back to me. And you used to be the mayor, of course they are, but
yeah, I was going to say, how much is that you, Sam? I mean, you think it's because it was a you?
You should test that. I think that would be interesting to know. I tell people all the time, some people say we should have a district system. Wow, that is really a bad idea. Because even if you don't get 7 responses, Kevin, or, your next door neighbor doesn't get 7 responses, maybe not on garbage pickup or that limb is hanging over, but on something of substance, I'm concerned about that roundabout, whatever the flavor du jour is, that, they're going to get, I'm just a betting woman, I'm going to bet they're going to get over half. But if you have a district system, you're going to get your district respondent and the mayor's assistant, if you're lucky, and then that representative yours can vote just the way you want them to all day long. Right. But the rest of the council can say, but for the greater good, this isn't in my district, so, it's in his district and he's going to vote against it or she, but the rest of us will do, the right thing. Really, it's a bad system. It's a bad system, and Phoenix has proven that, in my humble opinion.
And there's a good point. We know that they all read their emails. And one of the things we try to do is wake up people who might hear. It's always the vocal minority.
Sure.
It commands a lot of attention, where a lot of other people are happy with what's going on, maybe not always so willing to respond or send emails to council, but they read them. And if we had more people who like what's happening in the city, let people on the council know why they like it, that would make a difference.
Yeah. That's not human nature, though, Don. You and I both know that. When you're unhappy or angry or frustrated or concerned, then you're quick to, complain or call up somebody. But when, things are going well and you're all happy, you share that with your, your neighbors and your family, and over drinks, but it isn't the kind of thing that you're just going to pick up and say, I'm just so happy here.
That's why Kevin and I come together every week.
That's right. Hey, Sam, I want to ask you this because Don led off the questioning with asking you what you thought one of your career achievements was, and you identified Scottsdale leadership, which I think is wonderful. I'm going to be a little more specific, ask a very similar question, but in a little more specific time range. As mayor, what was your not favorite part about being mayor, but what happened in the city that when you were in a leadership position, that you're particularly proud of?
The only thing that I feel like I could say Sam did, because other than that, it takes a village.
That's okay, but you can talk. You can recognize.
Honestly, in my whole 12 years on city council, there's really only one thing that I feel like I can say I really did, and that's a big thing: the Pima Freeway.
Oh,
public art on the Pima Freeway.
Okay,
so there was no natural support for that aside from the Arts Commission. Frank Jacobson and the Center for the Arts, but really think of the kind of money. That when you're building a freeway on the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, how you would do that. So finally it came. I was pretty new elected to the city council, and they'd been for years. Herb did three big things, but one of the things that he did was that he just pronounced, and then it happened. The preserve, no homes will be built.
Right.
The freeway, no homes shall be taken. I'll think of the third one. But no home shall be taken was the Pima Freeway one.
Yeah.
Because it would have taken bashes and churches and, all of that.
Right.
So without consulting anyone on the council or anyone at Salt River or anybody down at the Department of Transportation, he announced to Steve Wilson and Chuck, and said, nope, we're just not going to take any Scottsdale homes. He could do that. This is the everything north of Shea will be 1 acre. That was the third thing. That was the third pronouncement.
Yeah.
And, none of those three things really came the way you would have thought him, that it's one person saying it, but it put a line in the sand, and then you were for it or against it, or, you jockeyed it around. So it's not going to be built in Scottsdale. So really the Native American community went, hello,
Right.
And plus we have Latis, and it's very complicated, and, we're a separate nation, and I'm not the mayor. I am the president of Salt River. I mean, really this big thing, a lot of that before my time. But finally the day had come that Salt River Pima is so wise and, such beneficiaries of that.
Yeah,
talk about that.
For sure, economically, yeah.
Oh, man. The place was set. And so maybe a 7-mile freeway, maybe half of it was in Salt River, coming from the turn up to about, Indian School maybe. And then, further north than that, via Ventura. And then the rest of the way out to Pima, where it turns on Princess. The rest of that was Scottsdale. So there was Charlie, somebody whose last name I've forgotten, from ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, there to say, here's the mega, hundreds of millions, wasn't a billion in those days, hundreds of millions of dollars that we're going to allocate. Last city to get freeway, for that. And so the Indians were there. Yeah, the Native Americans were there. And, we were all ready. And I said, I'd like to make a motion that we set aside 1% for the arts, as we do on every public works project in Scottsdale. That's the public policy we made, I didn't say it that way, but, for emphasis. And it was like, what? I mean, literally. A councilman sitting next to me literally threw papers up in the air. But, I'm new, and I'm this know-it-all, and if there's one thing I know, it's the arts. And I'd talk to city councils all over Arizona about this. And we had the policy. We already had percent for art. So really, Herb was like, we can't do that. And Charlie rushed to that podium and said, you can't do this, and everybody will want to do that. And 1% of $900 million is still $9 million, blah, 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 blah. But, Herb liked everybody to vote for everything. He liked unanimous votes. And so I stood my ground, and one by one, they capitulated. And so on a unanimous vote, we vote to just set aside 1% for the arts.
That's a great story.
That's a great story.
Fantastic.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. That's a legacy lever,
But
sure.
you have to remember, we had Scottsdale Art Center Association, SACA, in the old days.
That's right.
You had Frank Jacobson, you had Valerie Videla Homer, Kathy Hotchner, Robert Knight, 4 people who were well known by the community, had been through leadership, had been around, responsive to the community in every way. And so I think that people just thought, well, it's an investment, and council set that policy, and then it was years, because remember, they just had those pylons out there for, maybe a decade practically before any of that.
Yeah, bridges to nowhere, right?
Right, but still 1% for the arts.
That's fabulous.
1% for the arts.
That's a good one, Sam, for sure. Time has flown by, I'll tell you what a great session it's been, Sam. You've left an amazing legacy. Kevin, you have an analytics for us today,
I do. I have
you?
some, a little bit of analytics to talk about. As you mentioned at the beginning, we all know Sam was our first female mayor, elected in 1996. And so I started thinking about other female mayors across the country.
Yeah.
And so I did a little digging. Did you know that as of May 2023, there are 424 female mayors in the United States? This represents 26.2% of the 1,616 mayors and officials who perform mayoral functions in cities, towns, and subdivisions that are over 30,000. That's 26.6%. What do you think about that, Sam? I think it's a pretty good number.
It's remarkable.
Do you think it's good, or you think a lot more to go? A lot more to work, but that's a pretty good number, I would think.
Yep, it's changed a lot. And I know we're out of time, but when I ran for city council, 6% of Scottsdalians identified themselves as non-white.
How much?
6%, and they all lived around Paiute, if you can.
Really?
Sure,
you can kind of think that. Not all of them, and I'm being a little, generic here. Yeah. And now it's almost 20%.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's a good stat too.
Isn't that
Absolutely.
something to know?
Yeah.
You don't see it day to day, but you feel it.
Good, healthy growth for sure.
Yeah.
So yay on women mayors. Thank
Absolutely. California has the most. They have 49 female mayors.
Do they really? Okay.
Yeah, 49. So you may want to know, who was the first female mayor in the United States? That was Susanna Salter, and she was elected to a small town in Kansas, Argona, Kansas, in 1887.
Oh, man.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
1887. There you go. And who was the first female mayor of a major city? In 1926, Seattle became the first U.S. city to have a woman mayor. Bertha Knight Landis was elected in 1926. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy, yeah.
I think Margie Hance was the first woman mayor of Phoenix, and she was a title.
She might have been Margaret Hance, yeah, exactly.
Was she really?
I think so, yeah.
In my very first reporting days back in the 70s, there was a woman mayor in Dunbar, Pennsylvania named Angela Graziano.
Really?
Dunbar had about 50 people in it.
Yeah, I bet, right? Yeah, well.
But she was a pistol, too. And then I was a young cub reporter, so she gave me plenty of things to write about.
Oh, great.
So that was a lot of fun back in the day.
There are 8 female mayors in Arizona cities that are over 30,000 people.
Today there are 8 today?
Yeah, that's impressive.
Not bad, huh?
That's progress. I would suggest, and I think, Sam, you would certainly endorse this, still room for improvement, but good progress along the way. So that's good to see.
We had the Women's Collective on last week talking about that. Yeah, Jenna and Chris, they were talking about all the great things that they're doing and the great progress that women are making in our community.
Leadership development, it's all about that. What a fantastic show. Sam, thank you so much for all that you've done for so many years for the city of Scottsdale, for our community overall. You've left a lasting impact on us all, and we sure appreciate that. And we know you're not done either, so keep on going. We still have all have a long way to go, and we're not done either. Next week marks our 100th episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale. We're going to have a little fun with that, a little party out here. If you hear this in time and you want to join us down at the Pod Populi Studios in Old Town Scottsdale, come on next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. You might get this podcast. It'll drop Tuesday. So I'll give you 1 day notice if you haven't heard about it yet. So come celebrate with us then. If you can't make it then, just tune in to us again, because we'll be back with you again next week. See you then for another edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.